Do you ever catch yourself not looking at certain parts of your construction business because you don't actually want to know what's going on? You kind of know you should look into that one specific part of your business that you're not happy with, but you check your email instead. You tell yourself, you know what, I'll dig into that next week. But then you don't. Meanwhile, you're still working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, putting out too many fires, jobs are dragging on, you don't feel like you're making as much money as you should be, and you feel like something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Here's the harsh truth. Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored. Your costs are what they are. Your dead days are what they are. I'll explain what that means in a few minutes. Your bottlenecks are what they are. Looking away doesn't change reality. It just makes you the last one to find out. In this episode, I'm going to show you 4 simple numbers you can start looking at that will explain a scary amount of what you're dealing with in your construction business. They don't show up on your financial reports. You won't get them from a CFO or a CPA or from a bank statement. And I'll warn you, once you see these, you can't unsee them. So let's get into it. You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast, where it's all about systematizing your construction business so you can eliminate chaos and maximize freedom, impact, and wealth. My name is Todd DeWalt, the founder and host. My team and I have helped hundreds of construction business owners, custom home builders, large-scale remodelers, and general contractors go from I own a job to I own a business that runs without me. Our website is constructionleadingedge.com. And today we're talking about a simple but uncomfortable idea. What you look at improves. What you look at in your business and your life improves. Not what you say is important, not the goals you write down in your unicorn journal, but what you're actually willing to stare at week after week. So there's this famous business idea that what gets measured gets managed. Or another way it's said is you can't manage what you don't measure. I'll say that again. You can't manage what you don't measure. So how this applies in your personal life, let's say you want to lose weight. If that's the case, the first step is not buying a treadmill or a gym membership. The first step is to step on the scale and actually look at the scale, or to track your food and look at what you eat for a week. Most people don't have a weight loss problem. They have a I don't want to look at the scale problem. Imagine if you took your truck to a mechanic because you had an engine problem, and the mechanic didn't have any diagnostic tools, no gauges, no oil pressure. They didn't measure anything. They just said, yeah, man, that sounds weird, or feels weird. I've got a bad feeling about that. And they started doing work based on it sounds weird and I have a bad feeling, or it sounds kind of bumpy. No diagnostics, no tools, no data. You would never hire a mechanic who did that. But that's how a lot of construction business owners run their companies, by gut feel. They feel busy, feels like they have plenty of work. They feel stressed. They feel behind. Maybe they feel like they're making the right amount of money, or in many cases, it feels like something's off, like something's missing. Go by gut feel, but they're not actually looking at the numbers that explain why. They're trying to manage something that they're not measuring. They are flying blind. So in this episode, we're going to talk about picking the right gauges on your dashboard. I'm going to share 4 things that you need to measure in a construction business that are not taught conventionally. I figured this out the hard way by running a company, and we figured this out as we've worked with hundreds of construction business owners. So there are not 40 gauges, there are not 40 metrics. There are 4 things I want to talk about today. 4 things that if you'll start looking at them consistently, they will expose the root cause of why you're so damn busy, why you don't have time. You'll see why jobs drag on and why profit is not what it should be. And it'll tell you exactly some things that need to change in the design of your business if you want the next year of business to be different from the last year. Let's jump into it and start with the 4 dials that we want to talk about. The first one is your OIC, which stands for Owner Interruption Count. The OIC, the owner interruption count. So the question is, how many emails, texts, and phone calls, and hey, do you got a minute interruptions hit you in a typical workday that require your decision or approval or your time? I'm not talking about spam. I'm not talking about newsletters. I'm talking about things you have to answer. And you don't even have to track this for a week. All right. You can start with yesterday. So here's how to measure your OIC, the owner interruption count. Pick up your phone. You may want to pause this podcast and I'll tell you what to count. Look at the last work day. Okay. Look at your phone call log for the day and count how many calls either you made or received that needed your brain. Look at your texts from that day and count how many texts you received from your team, subcontractors, clients, etc. Look at your emails from that day and do a count of how many emails you had to respond to or had to send. And you add those three together, the phone calls, the texts, and the emails. That is your OIC. That's your owner interruption count for a single day. If you want a quick shortcut to see if your OIC is really high, call your own cell phone. And if your voicemail box is full, that's a pretty good sign your OIC is out of control. When I call someone and I get this message, the voicemail box for the user you've called is full. It can no longer accept messages. That's a giant red flag to me. So why does this matter? Because every one of those touches, every one of those texts, phone calls, emails is a decision that you didn't delegate. It's a system you didn't build. It's a role that you didn't clarify, or it's a piece of tribal knowledge that lives in your head instead of a playbook. It's also an interruption. So if you're trying to get something done that would take an hour and you get 5 interruptions in that hour, are you going to get that thing done? Probably not. A lot of owners tell me, Todd, I don't have time. I don't have time to work on the business. I don't have time to do much of anything. Well, yeah, no kidding. It's because your day is spent reacting to everybody else's problems. Your time, your agenda is set by everybody else in your world. So when you look at that number and you realize, yesterday I had 47 interruptions that required me. Maybe you had 20 text messages, 20 calls, and 7 emails. That adds up to 47. That's probably pretty light. It's not unusual for me to talk to people and I ask them, hey, what's your OIC? And it will be over 100. When they add it up, it's a ridiculous amount. So when you look at your OIC and you realize, wow, I had 50, 75, 100 interruptions that required me, you realize this is not a time management problem. It's a design problem. You don't need to get better at time management. You don't need to get more efficient at handling all of these calls. This is a design problem. This is a flashing red service engine soon light that's on your dashboard saying, hey, your business is designed to fail without you. Your business is built around you as the hub. And as long as that's true, you will never have the capacity to fix the next 3 numbers that we're going to talk about in a minute. So the first dial is the owner interruption count, which is OIC, which also stands for, oh, I see what the problem is. When you tell me that your OIC is 50 to 75, or especially if it's over 100, I'll say, oh, I see what the problem is. Your business is designed to fail without you. So the second dial is your handoff completeness score. The second dial is your handoff completeness score. This points straight at your pre-construction deficiency, and it tells you if you're stuck in the just enough to start habit. So here's the question. Here's how you figure out your handoff completeness score. When you hand off a project from the office to the field or from estimating to operations, how complete is that handoff really? We're going to put a number to it. Some people would say, it's pretty good. Yeah, it could be a little better. But here's how you put a number to it. So if your field team needs, say, 20 pieces of information to run that job smoothly, how many do they actually have when they start the project? So here's how to measure your handoff completeness score. Step one is to define ready for production. Step one is to define what constitutes ready for production. So you would sit down with your PM or your superintendent and list out what they need before they start. Here's some basics: final drawings, signed contract, detailed scope of work, selections fully locked down, schedule with key milestones, budget, client expectations, contact information for everybody on the team, a list of subcontractors with their contact information. Even better, a completely bought out projects with a stack of purchase orders or subcontract agreements, a job site logistics plan, just to name a few. Let's say that list ends up being 20 items, that there are 20 things, 20 pieces of information that would make a project ready for production. In other words, if you hand it off and your superintendent or project manager had everything they needed, there would be 20 pieces of information. So step two is to score your last handoff. I would challenge you to look directly at this and see how ugly your baby is, and take the last job you handed off and ask your team, how many of these things did you actually have at the handoff? There are 20 things that you need. How many of them did you have? If they needed 20 and they received 14, that's a 70%. Okay, so you're going to come up with a percentage. If they received 10 out of 20, that's 50%. If they received 20 out of 20, that's 100%. So you would grade it like this: between 90 and 100%. If they received between 90 and 100% of what they needed, that's an A. If it's in the 80s, that's a B. We're using a college 10-point grading system here. 70s, that's a C. 60s is a D. And below 60, that's an F. So you would score your last project that you handed off and give it a number. Is it 82%? Is it 67%? What's the number? What percent complete? That is your handoff completeness score. And then step three is to be honest about the pattern. If you're being honest, most guys find that they're starting around the C level handoff. Means they're handing off 70 to 80% of the information that they need. In some cases, it's worse. And then, let's face it, if you're handing off a project with 70% of the information they need, but then you're surprised when details fall through the cracks, when you're surprised that trades have to remobilize, you're surprised that clients make decisions late in the game, if you're surprised that profit bleeds out of the project through rework and delays and you end up eating costs, if you're surprised by that, then that's on you. Because when you start looking at this number, your brain stops saying things like, well, we just need better subs, and our people need better time management, and these customers are a pain in the ass, or these projects are just complicated. You'll stop saying those things, and you'll start saying, we need a better design. Yeah, we need to change our process. We're doing what should be pre-construction activities during construction, and we're paying the price. We're starting projects with incomplete design. We're starting projects with allowances and reconciling those allowances. We're starting projects without selections on materials. And we're doing what should be pre-construction activities during construction, and we're paying the price. If that's you, then you're doing the right things. All of these things get done. You buy out every project. Every selection ultimately gets made. You're doing all of the right things, just at the wrong time. And that's a design problem. So the second number, the second dial to look at is your handoff completeness score. Hey, it's Todd. We'll get back to the episode in just a minute. If you're thinking about growing your construction business, maybe you've been wondering things like, how do I know if my business can handle more work without falling apart? Is now the right time to grow, or should we just stay where we're at? Am I missing something that could blow up if I scale too fast? Do I have the right structure in place to support growth and to be able to grow safely? Maybe you're worried about burning out your team or burning out yourself. You're worried about winning more work, but then losing control of the quality and having that hurt your reputation. Maybe you're concerned about getting stuck in more chaos, having more problems instead of having more freedom, or finding out too late that your systems just weren't strong enough to handle the growth. Well, here's what's surprising. A company studied why successful contractors fail, and they found out two things. Number one, contractors don't starve to death. They get too much work too fast with inadequate resources, and then they run out of cash. The second thing that they learned after studying a couple of hundred successful contractors that failed is that contractors are actually more likely to go bankrupt during a growing economy than during a downturn. So how do you know if your business is ready to scale? How do you know when it's time to hire more team members, to go after another market, to sell more work? Well, that's a big question that a lot of people are grappling with. It's a question I get a lot. So that's why I created an assessment tool to help you answer the question, is your construction business ready to scale? This assessment is free, it's online, and you'll get a customized report showing exactly where your business is strong and where the hidden gaps are that could trip you up. It's the fastest way to get clarity before you put your business and your future at risk. So if you want to take the free assessment to find out, is your construction business ready to scale? The link is in the show notes. The third dial is your dead day count. The dead day count. This is a big one for custom builders and remodelers and general contractors. Nobody talks about this, but this is a big one for general contractors. The question is, how many days of zero activity are happening on your job sites each month? If you were to look at a calendar for each project that you have running that's active in the field, how many days would there be zero activity? If you were to look at, there was a day that work was put in place, something meaningful happened on the job, that would be an active day. But a dead day is a day where there's zero activity happening on a job site. So a dead day is a day where work could have happened, but nobody showed up, nothing got done, no billable work was put in place. Yet you still paid all of your overhead costs, your insurance, trucks, salaries, software, rent. You still paid all of that overhead cost, but that day will never be converted into revenue. It's a dead day. You still have the work in backlog, which is great. You still have the work in contract. It doesn't feel like you lost anything, but it's a dead day, and it actually does cost you. So here's how you measure it. You take each active job this month, use a simple calendar or a spreadsheet, mark every day the job could have had work being done, but it did not. We're just talking about Monday through Friday, not the weekends. So 5 days a week, mark every day the job could have had work done, but it did not. And you can look at your daily logs if you want to do a deep dive in this. And if there's an active job and no activity was done, that's a dead day. Then look at the dead days per job per month on a specific remodel project or a custom home project or a commercial build. How many dead days did you have where nothing was going on that project in that month? And then you can look at the dead days as a percentage of the total days that job's been active. Now, why does this matter? Why do dead days matter? Because every dead day is a day of overhead with no production, a day of overhead with no billable revenue to go against it. It's a schedule delay that pushes your finish date. It's a day that bumps the next project back. And it's one more reason that your current client is wondering, why is no one here today? And it's one more reason your next client will ask, why is my project delayed? Why is my project being delayed? Then if you multiply that across 5, 10, 15 active jobs, it's a massive drag on your profits and your reputation. See, most owners never look at this in aggregate. They never look at the big picture. They only see it like one day. They look at it 1 week at a time, maybe one job at a time. They never look at it in aggregate. But when you zoom out and you add up these dead days and you see out of an average month that has 21 working days, all right, an average working month, let's say you have 250 work days per year. On average, you have 21 or 22 working days per month. It's not unusual for people to say, well, you know, we only had 3 or 4 dead days a month. 3 or 4 days of no activity, that doesn't sound bad. But 3 dead days is 14% of 21 working days. 4 dead days is 19% of 21. This is why custom builders, remodelers, and GCs are not as profitable as they could be. They're looking at their backlog. They're looking at the contract amount that they have. They're looking at the margin that they bid it at, but they're not as profitable as they could be, and they can't put their finger on it. Well, this is one of the issues. This is why custom builders, remodelers, and GCs are not as profitable as they could be. They're not turning backlog into gross profit at the rate that they should be. There are too many dead days on the calendar. One of our clients started tracking days of activity, and his target was 3.75 days per week, 3.75 out of 5. And when he started tracking it, there were several dead days a week. It was not unusual to see dead days, 1 or 2 dead days a week on these custom home projects. And as he really focused on that, and he put this on his scoreboard, he tracked days of activity. He had every one of his project managers track their days of activity. And that average got up to 3.75, which was the target, and then it got up to 4, then 4.5, and his team's days of activity is now almost at least 1 day more than it was a year ago when he started tracking this. So he's averaging 4.5 to 4.75 days of activity. And as a result, his revenue has gone up dramatically, and his profitability has gone up. If you're not happy with your profitability, start looking at your dead days. And then you can start connecting it back to dial number 2, the Handoff completeness score, and ask how many of these dead days were caused by a C-level handoff and loose pre-con. How many days did we lose because we're waiting for a selection that should have been made in pre-construction? How many dead days are there because we didn't get windows ordered when we should have, or we waited too long to lock in a subcontractor? All right, the fourth dial, the fourth number to look at is your daily overhead burn. And this one punches people in the gut. So the question is, how much does it cost you per day just to wake up, open the doors, and exist as a business? The question is, how much does it cost you per day to just wake up, open the doors, and exist as a business? Not including subcontractors, not including materials. I'm talking about your fixed overhead cost. This is your daily burn rate. Say you're doing $5 million a year in revenue, and a healthy target for overhead in that range is roughly 10% of revenue. So your annual overhead would be $500,000, 10% of $5 million. Here's how to calculate your daily overhead burn. Step 1, take your annual fixed overhead, in this example, $500,000 per year. Step 2, divide that by the number of working days. Let's use 250 working days per year. So 500,000 divided by 250, that's $2,000 per day. That $2,000 is your daily overhead burn. Every working day, whether you produce anything or not, that meter is running. You need to generate $2,000 of gross profit per working day just to break even. In this case, you need to generate $2,000 of gross profit per working day just to break even. And we haven't even talked about the profit you could have made if those days were productive. We haven't talked about the opportunity cost of not starting the next project even sooner, or the impact on your reputation when projects drag out. So when you look at your daily overhead burn, you start to see that you can't afford C- grade handoffs. You can't afford dead days. You can't afford to be the bottleneck. You don't need more leads. You don't need to sell more. You don't need to grow necessarily. You don't need to grow your revenue. You need to redesign the machine. This is not a time management problem. This is not a financial reporting problem. These are problems with the design of your machine, with the design of your business. So let's recap the 4 things to start looking at. Number 1, the owner interruption count, the OIC, how many interruptions hit you per day. This tells you if your business is designed to run on you or without you. Number 2, the handoff completeness score. How complete is your office to field handoff when you start a job? That reveals how good your pre-construction process is. Number 3 is the dead day count. How many 0 activity days are happening across your jobs each month? This shows where schedule and profit are bleeding out, especially for you general contractors. And number 4 is the daily overhead burn. How much does it cost you per day just to exist? That puts a dollar sign on all of the waste. So what you look at improves. What you look at in the harsh light of day improves. In other words, nothing will improve until you begin to look at it, but only if you're willing to be brutally honest with what you see. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I know my owner interruption count is going to be over 100 per day. Or you might be thinking, oh gosh, those dead days are killing us. That's the real problem. That's where the profitability is going. Or you might be saying, I had no idea how our C- handoffs were killing us. I never thought about the ripple effects of doing just enough to start. If that's you, here's your next step. The next step is to set up a business evaluation call with my team. If you own a custom home building business, a remodeling business, or a commercial general contracting business in the US or Canada, and you're doing over $2 million in revenue, this is for you. If you haven't started a business, this is not for you. If you don't own a business, this is not for you. But if that's you, schedule a business evaluation call. And on that call, my team will walk through your business just like we did with these 4 dials. We will look at the bottlenecks and the constraints of your business. We'll help you see the structural design of your business that's producing your current experience. And then we'll show you what it could look like to redesign that machine inside of our Systematize Your Construction business program so the business runs without consuming your entire life. Now, a couple of quick notes. If you're convinced that you don't have time to fix this, or if you're waiting for some magical future season when things slow down, or if you believe that your business is a special snowflake, it's so special that nothing will work in your market, your projects are so unique. If you believe those things, we're probably not a fit. We probably won't be able to help you if you believe those things. The owners who get the best results, the ones that perhaps you've heard talk about their results on this podcast, are the ones who can say, yes, this hurts. I've been hiding from these facts. Yes, I'm finally ready to do something about it. Yes, I'm ready to commit the time and energy and finances to fix this once and for all. So if that's you, here's what to do. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or you can click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to a page where you can answer a few quick questions about your business, and then it will take you to another page to pick a time that works for you for your business evaluation call. Look, if it's not a fit, we'll tell you quickly. We'll point you in the right direction. If it is a fit, we'll talk about what it looks like to work together. So let me leave you with this. Your numbers already exist. Your daily overhead is already what it is. Your dead days already happened. Your owner interruption count is not going to change on its own. The only choice you have is, are you going to keep looking away and hoping it gets better? Or are you finally going to stare at the truth long enough to improve it? So remember, facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored. Go to constructionleadingedge.com, book your business evaluation call, and let's start fixing the design of your machine. So we are all about taking action. So here's my challenge for you. Your 5-minute action item from this episode is one of these things. I challenge you to do something in the next 5 minutes. Maybe it's counting yesterday's owner interruption count. Maybe it's grading the last job for a Handoff completeness score. Maybe it's marking the dead days on one active job. Whatever it is, do something in the next 5 minutes so this doesn't just become some interesting brain candy information. And then, hey, before you go, if you've been enjoying the podcast and getting value out of it, I've got a quick favor to ask. Could you take a minute and leave a 5-star rating and maybe a short review? It really helps the podcast grow, lets other people know what to expect. Plus, I love hearing your feedback. It would mean a lot to me. Thanks for listening. I'm Todd DeWalt from constructionleadingedge.com. I'll see you next time.